And the Lord God said unto the woman, what is this that thou hast done? And the woman said, the serpent beguiled me and I did eat. Well, at least she has a bloody excuse. First of all, it's a snake. I mean, those things are, as we already found out, they're subtle. And second, it turns out that the damn snake is Satan himself, you know, and he's rather treacherous. So the fact that she got tangled up in his mess, let's say, is, well, problematic, but it's a hell of a lot better excuse than Adam has. And the Lord God says unto the serpent, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And snakes, by the way, are lizards that lost their legs, just so you know. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. I love these pictures. They're so smart. And again, strip the religious context from them and just look at them for a second. What do you see? You see the eternal mother holding her infant away from the snake. See it down there? Right? Crocodile, snake, everything predatory that's been after us for like 60 million years. The reason we're here is because of that. That's why it's a sacred image. Now this one I like even better. See down there, there's something like the moon, and then there's this reptile down there that Eve is standing on. This is really old, and I showed you this before, but I think it's so cool. She's coming out of this thing that's like a hole in the sky, you know, because it indicates the eternal re-presence of this figure. It's something like that. The eternal recurrence of this figure. It's an archetype. But then the potential out of which she is emerging, these are all musical instruments back here. And so what the artist is representing is the great patterned complexity of being and the emergence of the protective mother from that background, protecting the infant eternally against predation. It's like, how can that not be a holy image? If it isn't a holy image, if you don't think it's a holy image, then there isn't something wrong with the image. There's something wrong with the perceiver. Unto the woman he said, well, and God's just outlining the consequences of this right now. It's like, okay, well, now you've gone and done it. You've woken up. This is what's going to happen. I'll greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children. And thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. It doesn't say he should. It says he will. And why in sorrow shalt thou bring forth children? Well, when you develop a brain that big so that you can see, it's not that easy to give birth anymore. And then you produce something that's dependent beyond belief. And that's one of the things that you would say dooms you to precisely this. So that's Eve's punishment for waking up. And Adam, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not eat it, cursed is the ground for thy sake. In sorrow shalt thou eat of it in all the days of thy life. What's that? It's the invention of work. Thorns and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. It's the invention of work. What do people do that animals don't? Work. What does work mean? It means you sacrifice the present for the future. And why do you do that? Because you know you're vulnerable and because you're awake. And so from here on in, from this point, there's no return to unconscious paradise. I don't care how many problems you've solved so that today's okay. You've got a lot of problems coming up. And no bloody matter how much you work, you're never going to work enough to solve them. And so all you're going to do from here on in is be terrified of the future. And that's the price of waking up. And that's the end of paradise. And that's the beginning of history. And that's how that story goes. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread till thou return unto the ground, for out of it wast thou taken. For dust thou art, and unto dust thou shalt return. And Adam called his wife's name Eve, because she was the mother of all living. Unto Adam also and unto his wife did the Lord God make coats of skin and clothe them. That's William Blake, by the way. And the Lord God said, behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. I'll go over this again next week. Therefore the Lord God sent him from the forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from whence he was taken. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims and a flaming sword which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. One more thing and then we'll stop. So I thought, why in the world? So Adam and Eve are tempted by the snake, they eat the fruit, they wake up, they realize they're naked. They realize that they're vulnerable, they realize the future, they realize they're going to die, they realize that they have to work. It accounts for difficulty in conception and the fall of humankind from unconscious paradise. Okay, that makes sense. What about the knowledge of good and evil? What in the world does that mean? The Mesopotamians believed that human beings were made out of the blood of Kingu, who was the worst monster that Tiamat, who was the goddess of chaos, could imagine and then produce. So their idea was that whatever it was about humanity, there was something deeply, 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 demonically flawed. So that's their conception. And it's out of that same milieu that these stories emerge. So what does opening your eyes and realizing your vulnerability have to do with the knowledge of good and evil? And really, I thought about that. I really thought about that. I got to tell you, I thought about that for like 20 years because I knew there was something there that I could not put together. And at the same time, I was reading things. I'm going to tell you something truly awful. And so if you need a trigger warning, you're getting one. And believe me, I do not give trigger warnings lightly. So I'm going to tell you something you will never forget. So this is what Unit 731 used to do in China. It's a Japanese unit during the Second World War, right? And as far as I can tell, they did the most horrific things that were done to anyone during World War II. And that's really something. So this is what they did. They took their prisoners and they would put them in a position so that their arms would freeze solid. And then they would take them outside and pour hot water over their arms. And then they would repeat that till the flesh came off the bones. And they were doing that to investigate the treatment of frostbite for soldiers. Now you can look up Unit 731 if you want to have nightmares. So that's Unit 731. That's human beings. Someone thought that up, and then people did it. Well, that's knowledge of good and evil. Here's the key, man. You know you're vulnerable. No other animal knows that. You know what hurts you because you're vulnerable. And now that you know what hurts you, you can figure out what hurts someone else. And as soon as you know what hurts someone else and you can use that, you have the knowledge of good and evil. Well, it's a pretty good trick that the snake pulled because it doesn't look like it's exactly the sort of thing that we might have wanted if we would have known what the consequence was. But as soon as a human being is self-conscious and aware of his own nakedness, then he has the capacity for evil. And that's introduced into the world right at that point. And here's the rest of the story. So there's the snake, right? And you're some tree-dwelling primate and the snake eats you, and that sucks. So let's watch out for the damn snakes. And then you think, well, wait a minute. Your brain grows and you think, wait a minute. Well, there's not just a snake. There's where snakes live. Why don't we just get the hell out of the tree and go hunt down the snakes and get rid of them? So those are sort of like potential snakes. And so the snake becomes potential snake, and it's the same circuit that you're using to do this thinking. And then you get rid of the damn snakes. It's like St. Patrick chases them out of Ireland. No more snakes. Everything's paradise. It's like, no. That's not how it works at all. Well, now you've got the human snakes. You're a tribe. You've got tribal enemies. You've got to defend yourself against the human snakes, right? So maybe your empire expands and you get rid of all the human snakes. And then what happens? Well, they start to develop inside. It's like you get rid of all the external enemies and you make a big city, and all of a sudden there's enemies that pop up inside, because the snake isn't just the snake in the garden, and the snake isn't just the possible snake, and the snake isn't just the snake that's your enemy. The snake is your friend, right? Because your friend can betray you. And then it's even worse than that, because you can betray you. And so even if you get rid of all the outside snakes, you've got an inside snake, and God only knows what it's up to. And that's why the bloody Christians associated the snake in the Garden of Eden with Satan. It's unbelievably brilliant. Because you got to think, what's the enemy? Well, it's the snake. Fair enough. But, you know, that's good if you're a tree-dwelling primate. But if you're a sophisticated human being, you know, with 6 million years of additional evolution, and you're really trying to solve the problem of what it is that's the great enemy of mankind, well, it's the human propensity for evil, right? As such, Well, that's the figure of Satan. That's what that figure means. Just like there's a logos that's the truth that speaks order out of chaos at the beginning of time, there's an antithetical spirit, the hostile brother. That's Cain to Abel, which we'll talk about next week. That's doing exactly the opposite. That's motivated by absolutely nothing but malevolence and the willingness to destroy. And it has every reason for doing so. And that's what's revealed in the next story, in Cain and Abel, in one paragraph. The first glimmerings of that outside of the strange insistence by the Christian mystics, let's say, on the identity between the snake in the Garden of Eden and the author of all evil himself.